I think we want to just digest a little bit about what we have discovered during the Autism Project is that we really had no clue how the system worked. It was almost like a learning, but also it was myself, Derek, and Carrie, who is a PhD student from the U, and the families will come in and we say, we've been waiting 9 months, the waiver. And it's like, what is a waiver? How long does it take? And so what we are asking is really, when you're working for the county or trying to help families, the conversation right away when we say, how can you help? The biggest challenges that we've seen, which will come up, is that the process, if we went to or just one website and say, your kid being diagnosed with disability, here is a checklist of do A, when you do A, you do B. And I think Carrie and Erica and the team were putting together that checklist. That basic information is missing. Maybe it's available to you and other places, but we haven't seen it. And the biggest frustration is we don't know where to go, we don't know what to do. So the question that we wanted to ask, and is spend a few minutes, and you may want to put on a paper or you can shout out, is really, this is very basic to you or maybe very basic to you, but for a brand new family, or even families that have been here 8 years that nearly got diagnosed their kid when he was 7 or 8, who have to start everything from ground zero, they don't know what to do. So this question actually came from one of our moms and said, if you're going to talk to the county people, could you ask if my child is diagnosed, how can I get help or how can you help me? So digest that a little bit. It's very basic.
So folks, I just wanted to quickly clarify because I saw some confused faces. So the question is, when a family or an individual is newly diagnosed with autism, think about what your role is and what can you do to help. What is it that you specifically offer as part of your role that you can do to help them? That's certainly a good sign. So I wonder who feels like they got something that they discussed at their group that they want to shout out or share with the others. Got a hand raised there. Go ahead.
I don't know how it is anymore.
Right. Yeah, good. So did others hear that? Seems like it's a good enough room that we can all hear. So yeah, that's a good suggestion. So calling the county intake line, they can help check eligibility and also refer out to some external advocacy resources and that sort of thing. Okay, good. What about others? How can you help? See Lauren over here? Yeah, it's a good observation. You're in a role professionally of when folks are diagnosed, helping them figure out how to access services and get support, that often you're also just trying to learn what's out there and piece it together. I think that speaks to the need for collaboration. So it sounded like there was another hand in the back. Oh, right here.
Well, one of the things I took the question a little bit differently. I thought if I know of a mother who has a child that was just diagnosed with a 3-year-old with autism.
Great news. Do you hear that, Derek? We will be connecting with you because you need to tell us, because that's what we are hearing. I'm waiting 9 months, I'm waiting 11 months, and we don't know. We're just thinking waiver is the end result for everything. And so that is the good news is that someone from your circle needs to tell us what are the services that the families need to start, so then we can educate them to say, hey, you don't need to wait waiver for 9 months. These are other services that are available. So we will connect with you. Yes? I think, so that is a great idea. And remember, there are also other East African community, but also I don't want this to be Somali thing. You know, yes, we are Somali community, but this disparity, even communities who have been here hundreds of years are struggling. And the key issue here is not to be defensive or to say this is what happens. There is an information gap. That is a reality. And what we're trying to do here is like, how do we create a streamline of information where right now there is the listserv that you've talked about. Amazing. We need to, ooh, I don't know what happened. We can, Erica, I don't know what happened. Knowledge gap. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, is that what it is? So, yes. So today, like, we're hearing great ideas of what we need to do. Someone at the back, yes? No. Thank you so much. Yes.
We have a 211 line for, people that need help.
Okay.
But it would be really helpful to have one that speaks them being able to explain it to them just by making a phone call.
That is, so the leading age or senior cares, they have really amazing call centers, and I'm not advocating that, but that it's like information center. But what I like about today's conversation is that we're discovering there are a lot of teams here that at one point a family will touch in their journey of getting services or getting support. So we would want to connect with you, number one. And number two, we as a county or as institutions, we have to really hire people from the community, not only from the Somali community. I know there is, baby boomers retiring, the lack of culture when we talk about it, again, people become, everything is fine and we're doing this and we're doing that. And literally, we have Fadila here who's an undergraduate public health. We're all public health graduate or undergraduate trainers. We have PhD students. So we are not struggling lack of not knowing the language, but we are stunned how really difficult it is to navigate the system with our own education, our own networking. So number one of the things I'm proposing is that you also need to think about how you will diversify your staff. And not only hiring them, but also how you want to maintain them. We get calls right now where counties and other corporations are hiring people of color, and within 2 to 3 months, that person leaves. You cannot keep that person in your part of your team because the environment is not ready for them. So there are a lot of good things that I'm hoping that could come out of this small project that we're going to continue. But again, it's really, everyone knows something that the other person don't know. And how we need to teach that each other and how we need to share is the key here. And we talked about listserv. That is really great idea. That will connect with you. And also, if everyone is sitting here signed up, we will make sure that we start connecting and saying, we have this journey of a family. Where do you fit in this? What's missing? And then end result is creating some sort of a booklet where it's really, we as a communities can take it, you as a county or school system can take it. So every one of us owns a piece of it, and we can contribute and really coming out a way to navigate the system. And lastly, the families will not, we have our community mention child protection and then they go into a terror mode. Families have been really, some bad things have been done to families. And so even when mom and dad need help and coming to the county, you mentioned that lack of trust, is that kids have been taken away parents that they thought they're not being taken care of, that were starving, and families don't know why this happened to them. They took them to ER and the doctors calls them, the child protection said, this kid is not well put together, they're starving, they're this and that. And without the parent knowing, because they don't speak the language, the kid's being taken away. So there are a lot of problems that are also creating a lack of trust. But if we have the information, Like, I'm totally clueless. Like, I'm learning every day something. And then that information we verify with someone, i.e. Erica or Evan and whoever they connect with. But if we had some sort of a process that we all can contribute, then we use it together, and maybe we can come back every year or so and say, do we need to update this? How does this work? That would be really amazing, and I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation and we're talking to each other. So yep.
I'm just thinking, are you using, are you aware of like the Disability 101, like DB 101 website, and then like mnhealth.info? They're both like great information. Minhealth.info is more information referral.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys?
We are going through that process. We're going through that process now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the MinHealth.
That's a good, I did information referral,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a good resource. I mean,
Awesome.
It certainly doesn't solve everything, but it at least is a way to, like, kind of access some more of the information. DB 101 talks about all the programs,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a lot of information about MFIP, SNAP, waivers. This goes into all the different types of health programs
Mm-hmm.
for the state of Minnesota. I don't know if that's a good information thing. I wrote it on the sheet if you.
Awesome, yes. And once we go back and we get the emails, we'll send out thank you, and we'll send out list of resources, what you have, and then we'll take. Lastly, before we wrap up, we ask you about your feedback. What do you need from us? What can we do to help you navigate our system or our community? Or what are your one thing or two things that you can think it would be really help us if we could do this? Yes.
I think learning more about the culture is important, but I also think learning about what other challenges
Mm-hmm.
the community faces when they come here, because it's much more than, I'm sure, just the language barrier.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that education needs to come and be provided more and more.
So when you say culture, what do you mean?
Well, just even the basic, I went to another country,
Mhm.
and I went in and I had no idea that they did everything differently than we did.
Oh, sure.
They ate at a different time, they stayed up all night, I mean, they did things that we just didn't do.
Okay.
But I didn't understand, and to acclimate to the United States, I'm sure was a huge shock, just in itself.
So family,
Understand, if I understood, oh, okay, this is when you guys eat, because this is, obviously.
yes.
Well, we do, this is when I eat, and let's try to work with that, to understand the whole.
Okay, so we usually what people ask is a family structure. We heard a lot about, I think you guys being Minnesota nice, but some people had asked about women's rights, the role of man in the house, a lot of family structural issues and that kind of thing. And you're right. And so that's a good feedback. We'll make sure that next time we're hoping that we do webinars. All of our training materials are in review for consultants that we've hired that also did survey to make sure that we are unable to cover everything. So the feedback, that understanding more. And one time you cannot learn a whole community. It took me 17 years to really call myself a Minnesotan. I'm still learning. So I want to make sure that there is that you get like every other month or some sort of a newsletter. Our hope is also to teach you basic Somali language that's in review right now, and really how do you even just connect with a family with a basic Somali language will be good. Anyone else, what can we do, whether you're a specific department or school, we can do customized training. Yes, sir.
I think acknowledging that we struggle as well, right? I've been at the county a little over 2 years, and I had extensive social services experience, but I hadn't worked in Minnesota for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was removed from the culture.
Okay.
And then you get thrust into a caseload, right? 50-some people, and all of a sudden I gotta learn all of them. You know, sink or swim, so to speak. The small name cases on my caseload, I had no idea that shaking a woman's hand was not appropriate, right? If someone hadn't taken the time to tell me, I would have kept doing it because I thought I was being polite. I thought I was being respectful. Until the sister of the person I served was like, that's not how we do it. But I had no idea, 6 months on the job, 6 months working with this family, I had no idea. So we struggle as well. I mean, I don't know what I don't know. You know, and so having that open dialogue, having the people that you serve understand that we also are struggling as much. I may come across as the person that knows everything, but I'm the person that I don't.
Yeah.
So knowing how to find and navigate that and talk through it, and then acknowledging the other barriers I have. I mean, I'm the big statured white guy that works for the government. That's a struggle that I can't change because it's who I am, but it's something I need to acknowledge and then help connect with that family to make sure that I'm not going to be the big evil person that is kind of, you know, pictured and talked about in the communities. Because not everyone's going to play that part, right? So it's just more having a dialogue and conversation and understanding the culture. You hit it right on. I mean, that's a prime example. I had no clue. Not only was I embarrassed, but I just felt really stupid because I had done it before and no one told me different.
Exactly, and I think a lot of some of my professors actually got C from my psych class because I was shaking hands with people, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I think I want to stop and do. People were like, why you tomboy? You used to shake everybody's hand, and all of a sudden I said, oh, I'm 30 now, so I'm becoming a little bit religious. Therefore, I stopped handshaking. But I do still. Sometimes I go back to my old ways and I see handshaking with people. So, but a lot of people, Minnesotans, felt very disrespected and that kind of thing. And that is like a very basic information. And right now, one project that we're doing, Somali parents, and building relationship with teachers, school teachers, we're designing a get to know me kind of a sheet where when you meet a teacher for your kid, the first time you meet, you just give to that sheet. One side talks about the American culture, what the teacher expects, and then Somali culture, what the parents expect, and then there's that, the handshake, the hug. I know some moms who will hug once they trust you. And not a man, but they will hug women too. Some of them, it's based on relationship. Some are very conservative, some aren't. So, but I think there are a lot also here and say that we don't talk to each other. So I'm all for really getting to know each other. And please, I beg of you, don't be afraid to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time and make Minnesotans angry because I'm very blunt. And so being blunt and being like this, so now you've been here 17 years, aren't you going to stop being blunt? I'm like, no, I'm genetically wired that way. So being persistent, consistently being aware of my bluntness, maybe offending someone, I'll come back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I was really blunt. I wasn't rude, but I was blunt. Realizing that my emotional intelligence tells me, hey, you offended Mary by being so blunt. So I want us to be vulnerable for each other. And I do appreciate you saying that because you don't hear that most of the male white community. And the last thing I would say is this. The biggest war we have on our hand, me and Derek and everyone else who serve the community, is that families have been let down by child protection involvement. And parents, forget Somalis who just got here, we really have to understand why a family is doing what they're doing and do not bring, if kid is in danger, if a kid is that ear infection. I worked at Park Nickel Health Services, and kids who will come in with ear infection, the neighbors will call to the cops and say, this kid has been crying for a week. What they don't know is this kid is struggling with ear infection, and the cops come, child protection comes, and the whole family is being terrorized. Remember I said it's an oral community, it's storytellers. The way we comfort one another is talking to each other. So I may never see a child protection case, or my kids will never see, but I have the trauma experience through my neighbor, through my friend, through my clan member. Even if it happened in another state, I take it as my own experience. So what I would say is that we will do more trainings. we are like speeding as fast as we can because we want these kids get early diagnosis, get early therapy that they need. We want to make your job easier, while also we want our job to be easier because God help us. We have families who are coming around everywhere from every county, and we don't have the capacity. Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Did you say you guys are working closely with law enforcement too?
We are.
That's good, because I can see where that could be really traumatizing for a family if
Yes.
they were to call the police and, I mean, you don't speak the language and now there are police officers and flashing lights and that is really overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but there's also, again, language barrier is not a disability. I couldn't speak one word English when I came here, and now I could speak. But the language barrier is a one piece of communication, but that doesn't mean that if you hire someone who speaks the language, who's a staff from the community or a native person, or you have supervisors from the community who can train the other coworkers, these challenges are not only we are not able to serve ourselves, you really need to think about how you can hire people from the community, who, by the way, college graduates who are African American, natives, or immigrants, the unemployment is 19%. So we are in also dismal unemployment case for kids of color and communities of color immigrants. So there are educated people who from these communities that you can hire when you create your budget and bring. So then while we are on the ground educating, bring the community together, institutions need to hire people from these communities. So then you have both ends coming together and really creating that kind of a cultural relevance specifically. I'm going to give the microphone to Eric and Erica and Evan, and we appreciate you coming. He's going to do the conclusion.
Thank you, Fortune. And thank you all for being here this morning. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and participate in this training and this discussion. As Fortune mentioned, we're really interested in your feedback about these kinds of sessions and what you'd like to see more of in the future. We did a previous session that had pretty much exclusively focused on better understanding the Somali culture and how, as professionals, we can understand where people are coming from or their cultural lens that they're looking at the work through to do better, at our jobs. And so that if that's something that there's interest in doing more of, that's certainly something we'd want to know and would be happy to offer. We really appreciate you all participating today and offering up your suggestions as well. As Fortune and Dec mentioned, for them, much of this system is something that they're learning. Previous to this project, Issaroon hadn't provided services specifically to people with disabilities. And so we are partnering with them to both help them better understand the service system and supports available to families, but also help us better understand how to support folks from the Somali community. And so we appreciate all of you taking the time to engage in this sort of mutual discussion today, and we're interested in hearing from you what you'd like to see more of in the future so that we can keep it going. So with that, again, just say thank you. And Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have certificates of attendance on the way out the door.